How does social media, how is that going to factor in with both of these hustles? And do you have to be two different kind of Amy's personality wise?
This is the $1 million question for me. This is what I lose sleep over right now.
It is the Tossing Salad Podcast. I am Brian Simatros, your host for episode 37 in a kind of a mini series of talking to people that have left the security of like a main 9-to-5 job and are getting out there doing their own thing, trying to do the hustle. Right? That song, every day I'm hustling. Have you heard that song? Rick Ross back in the day? Was it
that goes
before
through
your
my
time?
head daily now, actually.
Does it? Okay. Well, it's exactly what we're going to be talking about. We have my friend Amy. I've known Amy. It's been years, right? We're kind of friends within the garden community. And yes. I think what was kind of awkward when we set up this interview, I was thinking to myself, I don't know Amy's last name. Isn't it kind of funny? Like we get to know people on social media and you know them either by their handle, their thumbnail picture, maybe their first name. But then I felt guilty. I didn't know your last name. You think, is that bad?
You're the first person who's called me by my name on Instagram. Like you took the time to go past my handle, to look at my bio, to find my name. And then one of the first times that you reached out and said, hey, he said, hey, Amy. And I thought, whoa, this guy took the time to know my name. And so, I mean, even that's a big deal. So don't worry about knowing my last name.
But let's clarify, if I reached out or something, it wasn't sliding into DMs or anything like that. It was probably, we were talking gardening stuff or whatever. Yep. It's Amy Ellard Gray, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Before we get into our conversation today with Amy, and she's from the other side of the globe, Canada, right? Amy, you're my first international interview.
Wow.
Here on the Toss. Yeah, you should feel pretty cool about that. Have you taken sides on the Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef that's been going on the last few weeks? Because Drake is he's a Canadian guy, right?
That is the extent of what I know about celebrities, that Drake is from Canada.
I didn't know if you guys just you're backing Drake because he's from Canada, but I had to ask you at the beginning.
Yeah, I know nothing, completely out of the loop.
So Amy, I think it was yesterday, I was kind of going through my Instagram, and this is kind of what sparked this idea of mine to talk to people that I know that have left the kind of security of that normal, regular 9-to-5 job and to start something, whether it's on the side or you're diving in, or it's called a side hustle, it's your hustle, whatever it is. But I saw your story. We're going to play it here. And then I want your comment on this. Okay.
So I'm in this weird place in life right now where I am self-employed, but not employed, working on developing two businesses, and go through highs and lows. Some days where I feel like I'm going to be a huge success and this is definitely the right path. And then other days where I'm like, oh my God, don't have an income. This isn't going to work. And yesterday I was kind of feeling like, oh my God, this isn't going to work. What have I done? Today I'm feeling excited again because when there's a lull in one business, which is research and evaluation consulting, then I can pick up and put some effort into this business, which is not technically a business yet, but I feel like it could be. I feel like it will be. This being the hobby homesteads and content creation and educating people on gardening. And I'm curious if there's anyone out there who would be interested in consulting.
When I saw that, tell me what was kind of going through your mind when you decided I'm gonna just put a story out there, because I recognize that person in there as me as well on like some of the days to where I feel like what am I doing? Like just questioning maybe I need to go back to that desk job 9-to-5. When you were talking about the highs and the lows, were you at kind of a high and motivated when you made that story, or were you kind of hitting like, I don't know?
Well, it goes back to what I was talking about with two business ideas. And so I was definitely in a low for the one business. So I quit my job as a research and evaluation consultant for a firm. And for the last 3 months or so, I've been writing proposals to try to get work for myself in that realm. And I keep getting rejection letters. And these proposals take me like a good week to write. They're detailed. This is what I went to school for. Like, I should be getting this work and I'm not getting it. So I was feeling really discouraged that I just keep not getting those projects. And that's where the money is supposed to come from.
Right.
And that's what I've invested in so far, building that business. And then I just had this realization of, why don't I pursue two things? Because I love gardening. I love teaching people to garden. And I started to get excited again. And that seems to be the way of this hustle and being self-employed, is you just have to catch that high and ride it while it's there and really get the motivation from somewhere, because you're the only one who can control how successful you are. You got to find that motivation wherever it is.
But that is the hard part, is finding that motivation that you're talking about, because you're the solo entrepreneur in this case. Lots of highs and lows like you were talking about, and especially with you're sending out proposals, you're getting declined or whatever, people are not going with you. And it's one of those things to where it's not necessarily that 9 to 5 job to where you can you clock out at 5, you come home, take care of the kid, get dinner going, and you're hanging out with the wife and everything. You have to find the way to kind of keep yourself going. But sometimes being alone, like that's what I recognize in that video. Like, I know there's a lot of people that are like you, like myself, that are trying to get something going, being self-employed. You're trying to do two different things. And how old is your little one?
I have a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Oh, so you have two and a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
So you're managing that. You got the gardening, you got the two jobs you're trying to get going. How are we staying kind of positive in all this?
Well, I mean, for me, I'm lucky that one of the things is something I'm passionate about, and the other thing I don't hate. And so at least I think with a lot of people pursuing their own side hustles or main hustles, they're doing something that they're passionate about. And if you can find that the root of the passion, like when you think about people trying to fix their marriages, and at least in the movies, you always get advised to think about why you fell in love with the person in the first place and go back to that sweet spot. And so that's what I try to do. And I try to remember the things I love about what I'm pursuing. And that motivates me. Doesn't make it any easier when there's no income. And I feel really guilty that I've quit my job. We just have to wait and see if I'm going to be a success or not.
Does that cause added stress within your relationship? Because I know it does with mine. I used to have that 9 to 5 sales job right out of college, way back in, I think I graduated in 97. And for about 10 years, I worked for an exporting company where, well, it was a leasing company. And when the computers came off of lease after like 2 or 3 years, I was in charge of selling them overseas to like just smaller markets across the sea. And I hated it. Anybody that's creative isn't made to sit at a desk on the phone making these kind of sales. I hated it, but it was a regular income. Wife and I were, bringing in money. We could buy anything that we wanted to. Then we had kids and we're just having a good time. But when I decided that I would like to try and start up my own photography business, because that was a passion of mine. That was something that when I laid in bed late at night and I couldn't sleep, I was looking at photographers' pages. How did they do this shot? How did they do that one? And I remember asking my wife, what do you think about me staying home with the boys? And they were both really young at the time. My youngest was just born, actually. And I was having some issues at the place that I was working at the time. Stress, blood pressure was just out of control. It wasn't a very good situation. And I said, what do you think about me staying home with the boys? and then slowly trying to roll out this business with the photography. And my wife was cool about it, and we're fortunate that she's got a good job with the insurance, all that good stuff. She's like, sure, but it's an added stress on the relationship over time because of money, because she's working those regular hours. Then here I am hanging out in the garden doing whatever, doing a podcast in the middle of the day, and I may not see a paycheck in weeks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we're both in these privileged positions where we have partners who can foot the bill for us to go off and follow our dreams. I mean, you've been at this for a long time, and I'm pretty new at this. It's only been 2 months since I quit. I've been developing the business for a little longer, but it's only been 2 months since my last paycheck. And so it's hard to say if things are going to go sour or if there's going to be any complications. But so far, like you, I've been really, really lucky. Like my wife is just super supportive and has a good job. So we're able to manage this, but not forever. Like I need to start making money eventually.
Was it a conversation between the two of you that you needed to quit because of a certain issue? Or were you like, I just have a drive to go do these other things?
You know, it was a bit of both. I think she encouraged me to quit because I was stressed and I wasn't making the amount of money that I thought I should for the work I was doing. And so she was a big encouragement for that. Like, you should go and do this on your own. You could totally do this on your own. But then for me, it was, I see an opportunity to do what I'm passionate about. And like, I come from a family of entrepreneurs, people who started businesses from nothing, super random businesses. Most of them fizzled out, but they
Right.
still had that drive. And so little things like developing a logo and brand identity, that's exciting to me. And that is what I had in the back of my mind when I quit and wanted to go out on my own. But my wife saw the things that weren't good about me working in a 9 to 5. But I mean,
Yeah.
like, everybody has that.
Sure.
How many people have a job that you feel wonderful about at the end of each day, right? A lot of people are like, oh, I got high blood pressure from this,
Right.
or I'm stressed out, or I'm overworked. Like, that's just kind of par for the course.
Do you feel like you have the personality more of somebody to be an entrepreneur? And
Yeah.
you mentioned like you come from a family of entrepreneurs that have just random things that they're into. Or do you feel more like you're the personality that you're just satisfied kind of with nothing wrong with it, but
No way. I want control. Doesn't everybody who leaves their secure job to follow their dreams, don't we want control over our days and just to do what we want?
yeah, what, like, would you consider yourself kind of a creative type or no?
Yeah, like horrible at drawing. Can't draw a picture to save my life, but creative in other ways.
Like your old 9 to 5 job, let's say, do you feel like it was scratching enough of the creativity thing within you, or that's even part of?
Yeah, that's part of it. I remember having to write reports using my employer's brand, like their font and all that. I was like, I don't like this. I want to be able to get creative, and couldn't. So yeah, that whole scratching a creative itch is a big part of why I left.
And so it sounds like your wife was like, hey, you definitely need to do this kind of from a health perspective. And maybe she was seeing things that was affecting you. And I think it's kind of a weight off of our shoulders too, to where we may kind of recognize it, but we don't want to necessarily bring that to the table within our relationship. But if they're the ones that kind of see it and know that it's not a good fit, and they're like, why don't you remove yourself from that and go out and try to do what you're passionate about? I think that's got to be a huge weight off your shoulders.
Yeah, when you put it that way. I mean, there's other ways that get added, but there's also benefits.
So is she kind of involved a little bit in what you're doing?
Oh yeah, she designed my website and my brand. I get help from her all the time. She's my IT department because I suck at computers. Like for the garden stuff, she built all of the infrastructure. So I grow the plants and I supervise and I tell her what I want made and she makes it. And so she's 100% a 50-50 part of the business.
It seems just from following your stories and stuff on Instagram that she's kind of just good at everything,
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like she was like building, you guys are redoing your deck or something, right?
Yeah, totally. She's just like, I can do this better than anybody else, so I'm going to do it.
And do you think it's something that she's good at? Is it something that she wants to do, or is she doing it because she loves you and nobody else is going to be able to do it and she doesn't want you spending money on it?
No, she wants to do it. And like, honestly, Brian, when you're talking about my wife saw the stress in my life, you're talking about yourself and then also me. I mean, I see that in her. I want her to quit her job so bad because it's horrible and hard and whatever, but she also is really good at it and there are good aspects to it and she gets compensated fairly. It's just like, I want her to quit so that we can do this business together. But then there would be zero income.
Zero income with 2 young kids. I don't know if that's a recipe for the joyous days. Do you find that because you're hustling a little bit here and you're trying to get the 2 jobs done, one that's more in line with what you went to school with, right? And the other one is more in line with your passion of gardening. Do you feel like there's never really a start or an end? You know, you don't just clock out at 5.
Yeah.
You're probably thinking about all of this the first time you wake up, throughout the day, at night, cooking dinner, taking the kids, doing whatever.
Yeah, but I did that before too, when I worked for someone else.
Right.
You know, I think it's hard for a lot of people to turn work off at the end of the day.
Right.
Unless, you know, if you work retail or something, then you may not carry all of that with you. But like you go to bed at night thinking about the reports that are due or all the work that you have to do that's coming up. And so for me, it's that constant thinking about my responsibilities. It's always there, whether they are for someone else or for myself.
Is the pressure to get this going and generate a positive check coming in at some point? I mean, that I'm talking to you from my experience and the anxiety and the worries that I go through as a photographer. I mean, as that is my main business, but it's not a consistent thing. And there are times to where I have these down days, maybe weeks, to where I'm just kind of depressed.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's only
not to turn you off on this journey you're going on, because I want you to keep going and I'm rooting for you and I'd love to help however I can. But
yeah, it's only been a couple months, but I've had a week or two of feeling pretty down. It comes when I work really hard on a proposal for something. I think I'm going to get that paid work and then it doesn't come through. And then I feel like crap, like, what am I doing? I probably can't even make a thing of this, but it doesn't last because there's always something else to excite me about what's coming on the horizon.
Who do you find besides your wife as being your biggest cheerleader in helping you out? And then who is surprisingly like your biggest wet blanket in this? Whoever just popped in your head, I want you to say.
I don't have any wet blankets. I am so lucky. Everybody's so supportive.
That's great.
I think the biggest surprise for me was my past employers, especially because I quit to become a competitor and to start the same kind of business. But they've been so supportive, like ridiculous. So
how does that
got
work?
Lucky there. Yeah.
How does that work if you're being a competitor?
I don't know. I mean, I guess they know something. I don't know.
They just like you that much to where they're like, yeah, go compete against us.
Yeah, the hope is that we can work together in some capacity in the future. And so
I could see that.
You know, they get it. They did the same thing. They quit where they were working and started up on their own. So
right.
Yeah, they'd be hypocrites to say I couldn't do the same.
But there hasn't been anybody that you're somewhat close to, family or friends or anything, that you would expect them to be more supportive and they're more of a wet blanket? That's not, you haven't experienced that?
I haven't experienced it yet. I'm so lucky. But yeah, it's been 2 months. Maybe after a year of not bringing in any income, then people are going to start to change their mind.
Start turning on you.
Yeah.
That is really good that it does sound like, especially with your past employer, family, friends seem to be, I think you're saying, I mean, you're getting some pretty good positive vibes. People want you to succeed. Nobody thinking that you're crazy for doing it.
Well, I mean, that's different.
Oh,
they can also think I'm crazy, but still be supportive.
like your family, they're all like, yeah, this sounds like a great idea.
They are, but they've done the same thing. Like,
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah, we're just a bunch of risk takers.
Can you define for us real quick the one passion hustle that you're trying to get up and going is within gardening? What specifically are you wanting that to develop into?
I love teaching people. In grad school, I took on every teaching assistantship I could so I could get in front of people and talk to them. And just, I love it. And I love gardening. And so I want to teach people to garden. I specifically want to teach people to grow food, but in a balanced ecosystem. So in my teaching, I talk a lot about native plants, restoring ecosystems, healing soil, and then reaping the benefits with lots of delicious food. Also, in my other business, I focus on environmental justice and food security. And so there's a lot of overlap there.
Sure.
Both sides, I want to work behind the scenes on system change. And then I also want to work on the front lines, teaching people to grow food in whatever setting and environment they're in.
And I know that you've mentioned several times since you've kind of announced that you left the old business and you were starting up gardening part of this hustle. Talk about like the basic rights. Like, I think you have an idea that everybody has a basic right about food or regarding food. If you can explain that a little bit more, and how does that factor into making that into a business when you're like, it's kind of a basic right? Because I know you struggled with this because you've posted stories.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, my clients for my other area of work are corporations. They're businesses. Sometimes they're nonprofits, but like they're big organizations. And it's so different to me to charge an individual money to teach them something. Like I know that that's valid. My knowledge is worth money and whatever. Money, this whole system feels messed up sometimes. But I do feel like people have a right to learn to grow food, like a human right. I shouldn't be charging that. But ultimately, somebody's going to charge them. That information is hard to come by for free. You can check out books from the library and you can watch YouTube videos, but like as soon as you need more hands-on information, you got to pay somebody to get that. Like if you go to an institution to learn, you pay. And so I'm teaching, it's the same thing. And so I'm hoping that I can feel good about myself by like giving it away for free on Instagram and YouTube, give away my knowledge, but then also somehow reserve a little something special that people can pay for so I can also make ends meet doing it. Right. And I know people have like blogs and stuff and they make money through ad revenues and you can make money on YouTube, but I don't know how to do any of that stuff. I just know how to teach and to have basic interactions with people. So
your wife can get it all set up by tonight. Just tell her and she'll get it all.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
She'll get the blog with all the ads and everything going.
Yeah. If she wasn't building the deck, then she could do that. Yeah.
Well, she's got the middle of the night to work and do a bunch of this stuff. So why not? I see the dilemma though in how you kind of struggle with that. And I take a little bit of that from the stories that you kind of post because you do, and just knowing you're a very giving type person, very nice within like the gardening community that you and I, again, we go back years or whatever, but very supportive, offer up knowledge, help people out with tips and stuff. And it is kind of hard to be like, well, how can I make that sustainable for you and your family to be able to do that? And I think that there is a way to do it when you're kind of out there as a presence, big picture wise, helping people out. And then you can tailor specifically to individual families, how they can better succeed or not waste their money. Because I feel like if we're going to use gardening as an example, I've been doing it since 2014, like getting all into it, right? I did my master gardener classes, never got certified because I didn't get the right volunteer hours to go to the sale in like 2 years. You got to do so many hours. I did all the other hours and I was like, I'm so whatever. So I'm a failed master gardener in that sense, but I think I kind of know what I'm doing. I don't know about you, but when you watch a lot of these social media accounts with gardening, it's overwhelmingly more on the positive, easy side. Like, oh, anybody can do it. To a sense, yes, anybody can, but how successful are you going to be? There's times where I know exactly what I should do and how I should prepare and when to plant my stuff, and everything else will work against me, whether it's the weather, it's the deer, it's the caterpillars, it's a random blight that were to come in that you can't really do anything about. And there is value, I think, in what you're saying, to where you can go in and help people be a little more self-sustaining and know how to not waste their time and money in wanting to grow food for their family.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've made mistakes for 16 years, and I can maybe prevent you from making those mistakes because I've already made them. It's a long journey to become a actual food producing gardener where you can actually stop using the grocery store, and the pests and whatever don't really make a detrimental dent in your production anymore. Like, that takes a long time to get there, a lot of learning, unless you grow up with it and it's just part of your intergenerational transfer of knowledge, like you've always known. But I think a lot of people these days who are interested in growing food or gardening, it's pretty new. They haven't gotten their hands in the dirt very much. And so to get that information from someone who's been through it all can save you some heartache and some pain.
And come up with a plan of action. That's another big key. Again, I think I kind of know, not that I know everything or whatever, I don't, but doing it, like you said, for a while and having my own failures and knowing the mistakes that I have made, I have kind of figured out the best possible way that'll work for me. And it may not work for somebody else. And I think, again, that's something that it sounds like that you can offer to other people, in a sense that you can tailor something and give them a plan of attack for that particular family where they live. Because you're like, what area of Canada are you in?
Mid-southwestern Ontario. So it's kind of near Toronto.
Okay.
Probably
where Drake's from, right?
Yeah, exactly. Surprisingly, I don't know him. Yeah, but I think it's like a similar area to you in terms of latitude and climate.
So I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. If you're looking at the hardiness map, I'm in grow zone 6A.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think Canada, that you're like up by the North Pole or something.
No, I wish. I'm lower than that, so it still gets really hot here.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. So how do you convince people? Because I guess there could be a lot of people that are like, well, that's awesome, Amy. I would love to have you help me out. I would love to start growing some food to offset some of the things that, we have for our grocery bills or whatever. Amy lives just outside of Toronto, probably lives next door to Drake, but she doesn't know who Drake is. How are you going to roll out this business for people that they don't live on your street? Like, what are you going to do there?
Yeah, like there's this whole it's hard to sell yourself mentality when you start out. And so I'm thinking like, hey, friends, neighbors, does anybody want me to pop over? And, I'll charge you a little bit of money, but I'll do like boots on the ground. I'll help you dig your garden. I'll do all these things. That's not financially sustainable. It's not going to get me very far. So I'm trying to shift my thinking. And of course, there's the option for video tours of people's spaces. And I think that with that approach, it's going to take a little bit more sort of onboarding, to use a corporate term. So it would mean like an interview. I'd have to sit down and talk to people about their space, as well as get a little video tour, because it's hard to see things like the soil quality and the sunlight that you've got, or any barriers to the sun, and drainage stuff. Like, that's hard to see on a camera, but with a little bit of extra chit-chatting about the gardening situation, then I think it could probably serve anyone in the latitude, but somewhere in the northern part of the US to the southern half of Canada.
Well, I think even people that are somewhat close to you, they'll be like, oh, this sounds great, but I don't want to get down on my hands and knees and do this or that, and the soil sucks. And so now it sounds like, knowing your wife's background and how good she is in a lot of the stuff, have you guys talked about that this could kind of help each other out, to where somebody needs some raised beds built that works great for certain clients or something, and you're like, hey, by the way, that's another part of the business that we can offer?
Yes, we've definitely talked about it. I think we need our kids to not be so little and dependent. But then, yes, and there'll be time for us both to head off to a build project somewhere and put in some infrastructure, because the infrastructure is like the hardest part. That's like the hurdle to get past, and then you can get productive food growing space.
Is that your goal, or is that a couple's goal to where does she want to do that too?
Yeah, it's like pillow talk.
Is that seriously? Is that
Seriously? I don't. Yeah, like she's super pragmatic and would not ever quit her job to pursue something that's not a sure thing. That's me. Like I'm the dreamer. I'll take chances, whatever. We're the willow and the oak. And I think it's gonna happen.
But
you ask her and she'd be like, oh, it would be nice. But well,
so she would be on board to doing it. So as opposed to she's like, oh, for crying out loud, I got my own shit I got to do.
Well, a little bit of both. She does have her own shit she could play about.
Right, but is this a passion also of hers to want to do something and with you?
I think so, yeah. I mean, we talk about all the different ways that we could do these things together, whether it's going out to farmland somewhere and just building everything from the ground up together or doing this as a business. Yeah. The problem is, like, we're expensive. She's really expensive. And so to have her build infrastructure when she's got this big corporate job, it really has to be about following your passion at that point, because you're going to lose money at the end of the day. People don't want to spend $2,000 on a couple raised beds, right? But we could teach them how to do it themselves with reclaimed materials, and it's going to cost them a lot less. But you do have to get your hands a little dirty.
I totally get that. Do you guys work well together?
Yeah.
That's something that you explain this to me, because my wife and I mean, we do whatever convoluted DIY project that we have to do, whether it's just like painting or fixing something up. We just don't work well together. She's a completely different personality type also, to where she's a hard worker. She's like a shark. She doesn't sleep, and she has to always be doing something and doing something productive. And however good that is that I'm describing, I'm just the opposite of that. And whenever we work on projects together, it ends up being F word this, F word that. Well, then you do it. Okay, fine. And then you don't talk for 2 days.
Yeah, that's rough. I just wouldn't advise you two to get into business together again. I am like your wife, and also my wife is like that. So we're both like type A. We have to just be productive all the time. We have to be doing something amazing all the time. My wife has friends who say, wow, you are ridiculous. You're just such a powerhouse. You're always doing something. And then she says, yeah, you should meet my wife. And so we were at a gathering last week and someone introduced us as a power couple. And I was like, doesn't that mean like two people in suits? I don't really know what power couple means, but I think it means that you can really do anything together, can conquer anything.
Your kids, are they always trying to duck out of the way so you're not giving them work to do?
No.
That's just a recipe for disaster. If you're a kid that likes video games or watching TV and you have two parents that are just like you guys,
So far, they like to help. And so far, they both just want to be outside doing projects with us. So it's good so far. But they're not teenagers yet, though.
Oh, well, yeah, just wait until that part. Let's flip over to the other side hustle that you have that is more of your kind of your background, the one that I think in the short term, at the very least, is what you're thinking some income could come in on that as well. But you also kind of hinted that that's not the passion.
No, I'm trying to make it my passion. And I really do like working with data. Like, I'm a researcher and evaluator. And so I do stats, collect survey data, and I analyze it, and I put reports together. And like, it's a desk job, no matter how it shakes out. Even if I'm my own boss, it's a desk job. But I do like it. And I'm trying to do that work in the food security and environmental sustainability sector. So at least it's a sector that I care about.
Yeah, it's one to where when we talk about self-motivation, a little bit harder to get excited.
Yeah, it can be. There were two projects I was pretty excited about, like proposals that I wrote, and I didn't get them, but I came close. And, I think I would have been really dedicated to those. I think I would have put in extra time and done a really great job like I do with gardening. I did that in my past job. I know I can get passionate about certain projects doing that kind of work. Now that I've discovered this opportunity for the gardening stuff being a second hustle, it changes my outlook and my goals for this first hustle. So I no longer feel like I need to have 5 or 6 projects in a year. Right. I could do 1 or 2, and that could get me by enough to focus on the garden stuff as well.
Have you thought about, I don't know if it's an adage. I don't know. I don't know what it's called, but like when you're first learning how to swim, you just throw the kid in the pool. Have you thought about that for your gardening business and be like, that's all I'm going to focus in on, and I am forced to having to make that work? And this first hustle, the one that's more of the business side of things that you went to school for, that you just don't do that? Because if that kind of takes off, or you start getting busy with that, you're taking time away from the one that is actually the passion. Has that conversation happened? Or
Yeah, it happens in my head all the time. But as much as I like to just throw caution to the wind and follow my dreams, there's enough pragmatism left in me that I'm not going to throw away the thing that, I mean, that other business, the contracts that I would get would range from $20,000 to $80,000 per contract. So like, you don't have to work that much. I
Right.
mean, you can work part-time and you can be comfortable. And so I don't want to give up that route, because theoretically I put in a lot of work up front, I win a project, and I just spend part-time work doing that, and I'm comfortable. Like, it's
Right.
too much of a good thing potential to throw away.
No, that's a pragmatic answer. I get it. I totally understand. So my next question here kind of relates to both of your jobs and how we came together and everything. How does social media, how is that going to factor in with both of these hustles? And uh, do you have to be two different kind of Amy's personality wise, or what? How are you going to factor that in?
This is the $1,000,000 question for me. This is what I lose sleep over right now. The whole marrying of the two businesses, the two hustles. And like, I can't be the only one out there who's got two interests that are completely different, and you want to kind of do both things in life. But people have multiple jobs, but I guess this is different because like, I am the brand identity, right? And so I've got two faces. And I know that they connect. I know deep down inside they connect. But I just haven't been able to articulate how they connect yet.
Right.
Like, I kind of can, environmental justice and food security, sure. But, in that world, I'm doing strat planning, or I'm analyzing survey data for some organization. And in this world, I'm chatting one-on-one with individuals who are trying to grow food, and I'm putting up Instagram posts and like silly reels, and they are different. And so trying to marry them like on a website, I don't even know. I'm actually right now working on my hobby homestead website, trying to get that back up and running, because they've got to be separate in my mind. But it's messy when you've got multiple different hustles, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, just even with you describing that, at first I was thinking these were two separate things. And then as you were talking, I'm thinking, well, could it be merged into this Amy corporation, to where Amy, and then you've got the two wings that somehow kind of work together. And then, down the road, you've got a couple people kind of handling different things for you.
Yeah.
But
I'm
you're
trying.
seeing it as you're trying to make it into one
I feel like
brand.
it can happen. And if it can happen, it makes my life simpler. And maybe I need to put together a little focus group or something and get people to help me figure out how these things belong together from a branding perspective.
I think what has helped me over the course of trying to do whatever idea that pops in my head, that I'm like, hey, I kind of enjoy it. It's fun. It's interesting. I can be creative. Can I find a way to make it sustainable? When people just ask me just randomly these big questions like, well, how do you do this? Or what would you give as advice or something? Usually mine is to, first of all, don't talk to family or friends. And again, you're in a good situation, because it sounds like you're in a, you've got people that are supportive or whatever. But mine is talking to other entrepreneurs and small business owners that have kind of done it, there's no personal connections or whatever, to where they want to see you succeed. They're happy to see you succeed. Because sometimes I think people that know you change up a little too much. Some people don't like seeing you leave the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? They don't like seeing you kind of be different or doing things that's outside of what they know you as. But I found like other people within podcasting, let's say, I find that when I talk to other small podcasters, we're not talking the ones that have like the 6-7 figure deals that are on Spotify and making all this money, but I'm talking to other mom and dads or whatever, they're out there that just started up a podcast on insert whatever random topic that they love. I enjoy talking to those people and going over a lot of the positives, the fun things, and then sharing the pain and the crying and the frustrations over stuff. Those kind of conversations, I do get a lot of valuable information that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done that. But again, it's everybody's in their own bucket. And so I have talked to entrepreneurs who are evaluation consultants, and they can give me tips and advice. And then I also talk to gardeners or social media content creators who are making that their business. And it's been so valuable. But to me, it's been more valuable as like a sense of camaraderie and just other people who get what you're experiencing, and
Right.
they may be able to give you like some encouragement, like, hey, I did this for 6 months and then I started to see a little bit of an income, that kind of encouragement. But it's less technical how-tos that I get from those kinds of conversations, because I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like when you're making your own thing out of nothing, it's pretty unique to you, and how that's going to work is pretty unique.
Is the Amy that we see on the Hobby Homestead, which I believe your account is, you have that on Instagram, and what's the other, what are the other platforms?
YouTube. Yeah.
And YouTube. So YouTube and Instagram, is that the Amy? Is that real Amy?
Oh yeah. I'm like heart on my sleeve, super authentic person. So it's me, and I hope that helps sell myself.
Right.
You know, they say authenticity sells. I haven't sold myself for anything yet, but I'm trying.
Do you enjoy showing people Amy on social media, or is that just something you feel like you have to do?
No, I've always done it. In fact, when I first became a mom, I started a blog that was, again, heart on my sleeve, every experience just shown to the world, because I just wanted to share my experience and share what was going on for me, which is a little bit narcissistic, I guess, because you just want people to follow you and to see what you have to say. But more than that, it's like finding some common ground with people and connecting with people. You really have to put yourself out there if you want to have that connection.
Sure.
And I'm a super shy, introverted person, and so I don't get that in person.
Welcome to the club. I'm very introverted myself, so I think that's our connection. Right.
Well, and most people I think who share on social media to this extent do it because we don't get that outlet in person. If I meet somebody in person, it's not authentic, Amy, but online
I tell people all the time, because they look and say, well, he's on social media, he does a podcast, he's got to be extrovert. I'm like, I am the opposite of that. I was like, if you see me out in public, don't come up to me. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't have friends like here. I don't want to do anything with anybody. My wife, she's a social butterfly. Everybody loves her. It's been an issue to where we're invited as a couple to go hang out, and I'm like, I don't want to go. And I when we were younger, I would, because I felt like that was my duty as a partner. You know, I have to give in sometimes, right? And then the other times she would give in and be a recluse like me, and we'll stay home and just watch movies and be by ourselves. But now that I'm almost 50, and I'm like, I think this is where I get my badge, to where I can be like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go to the Christmas party. I don't want to go hang out on the boat with your friends. I was like, but don't let that stop you from going yourself. Please go if you want. Don't feel bad, but I don't want to go.
Yeah. And that works for you? Both of you?
It has to. It has to work. And it makes her a little sad, because I think that there's some friends of hers that have kind of quit asking as a couples group for us to go. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I feel for her on that, and I know she gets kind of sad about it, but I'm like, it's either I'm going to be miserable the entire time I'm there, and then she starts to worry. She's always glancing at me, and then she, I give her the look of, oh, well, it's time to go. So I just like, this is my thing. This is where I think introverts do well on social media, is because we're in control. We're here. This is what we want to put in. This is what we want you to see. And then we're out.
Yeah, totally. And it's weird because I don't feel the need to be out, like on Instagram. Like, well, obviously I'm out. I mean, like, people can write to me night or day on Instagram. If it's a gardening question, I'm there. I am there to support you and hold your hand. I don't care if it's 2 a.m. Like, I just love talking to people about gardening so much. Doesn't matter what time of day it is. But then if it's like not gardening related and it's in person, then yeah, I need that escape. I need a way out. But
see, this
like, it's important to me to be a doting wife. Still, I'm not almost 50. I'm almost 40. And so I guess I'm still in that frame of life where, you know, I try to go out and I don't put on the high heels anymore, but at least I put on something besides my dirty gardening clothes, that I make an effort. And then I come home exhausted and I need to like decompress and recharge.
and be left alone.
Yeah, be left alone. It's just hard with little kids.
So you don't, when you go out as your kind of just wifely duties to be a good couple,
Yeah.
you're really not wanting to, but you're doing it just
Oh,
because.
I hate it.
Yeah,
I
okay.
hate it. And like, I also don't want to keep reminding my wife how much I hate it, because if I'm making the choice to suck it up and go out, then I just make the choice, suck it up and go out. I don't just rub it in her face the whole time. Like, you know,
But
I
what
don't.
is she like?
What?
What is she like?
She loves to go out and be social. Like, not go out, but like hang out with friends and go for dinner. And
Is she an extrovert?
she's like somewhere in between, you know, like a middle ground. She needs a little bit of both, but needs that social aspect to her life. And
Yeah.
like, I have 2 or 3 good friends, and I prefer when we can interact via text message. That's
Yeah,
about
right.
all I want or need. Yeah.
Right. Don't come over. Don't call me. Send me the message. I'll get back to you when I do. So here's a great example of, you know, not all introverts are all the same. So Amy is more of the nicer one. She'll actually respond to you when you send her some questions on Instagram and YouTube. But yeah, you've always been just very nice, and we've had great conversations, and you're funny and very helpful and all that stuff. So I totally get it. And I think I'm a little bit further on that spectrum to where I'm just like, sometimes I don't think people will get a response from me, because I'm just like, it just weighs too much on me. And I know
Yeah.
people think that I'm a dick about it, or that I'm an asshole. And I'm just like, I just have to accept that, right? I just have to take the responsibility for that. That's the toughest part. So going more into social media, and especially with the gardening business, because don't you think that's a must? Like, you have to have a social media presence.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And how do you keep yourself from not hating people the more you get to know them? Because you're coming across people from all over the world
Yeah.
that have connections to you, and everything's great when you're talking about how to grow a tomato, or look at this carrot, zucchini looks awesome, we're all organic, okay. And then some other things start to kind of creep in, and then you're just like, oh, I hate social media.
I am not big enough to have experienced the negative side, I guess, because everybody I've interacted with has been just a down-to-earth human. Now, like, so I studied prejudice in my PhD. Like, that's my jam. I understand the inner workings of prejudice and how people's attitudes are formed. And I remember I started watching Roots and Refuge on YouTube. Jess from Roots and Refuge, she has got like a beautiful farm in, I don't know, some state somewhere in your country. And I remember when she said she was religious, like very religious.
Mm-hmm.
And I put up barriers immediately. It's like, well, she'd hate me because like I'm gay and whatever, and I'm an atheist. Like, there's no way we could ever get along. And so for a while I stopped watching. And then I remembered my training, and that was very prejudiced of me. And I have taken that learning to every connection I make on social media. And so I don't care if you like, there's actually a lot of women on the homesteading channels that are anti-feminist and believe that their husband should be in control and working, and they should just be baking the bread. And I still engage with them and interact with them because they're still a human being, and we can still learn something from each other. And they're not like telling me that I can't have a job. They're just saying that that's how they live their life. And so it's possible that I have come across people with glaringly different opinions than me that I may not agree with, but because of my training and because I've learned to not turn my nose up at people or make assumptions about people. Like I love Roots and Refuge now. She's like my favorite YouTube channel, YouTube creator. And it now no longer matters at all that we have vastly different backgrounds or belief systems or whatever. Like we are both gardeners and that's the end of it. And so I carry that with me through all the connections I make on social media. It really helps because I can like the people and I can enjoy the people. And it doesn't matter if maybe they've said something or shared something that would be counter to how I choose to live my life.
Do you think you found that to be more the rule or the exception, how that turned out?
That's
when the red flags come out for you, has that been the rule or the exception that it's turned out
well
as a good relationship and turned out well?
The rule, although it's possible, like I just maybe don't keep up with chatting with other people who, if there's something contentious. But
are you able to shut the door kind of if you have to, or do you have a hard time in not necessarily conflict? Like I don't like conflict at all, but I also don't have a problem with, I can completely shut the door and just not have to engage at all with anybody. And it doesn't bother me. There's no guilt, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, there's no guilt for me either. But again, like I haven't come across anyone who's been really hateful or whom I've felt like I need to just shut them off, block them, whatever. I haven't experienced that.
So social media for you at this point right now, you're like, hey, it's actually pretty cool. The relationships that you've had and acquired, everything has been going really well for you.
Yeah.
That's good.
I've got like 3,400 followers on Instagram, and it's been a very slow, organic following. And so it's been, I think it was 2018 when I started on Instagram, and they've just slowly come through the door. And so I've actually chatted with a lot of those 3,400 people and gotten to know them, and they've all been cool.
Slow and steady, I think, is kind of the way to go. And I know, I fall into the same trap too. You sometimes you get caught up in some of the numbers a little bit more than what we should, and you want to grow. Sometimes you just want to be heard or just know that there's somebody seeing or hearing you. Again, this is more of just the pessimistic side of Brian here, that I feel like the more I get to know people out there, whether or not how we came together, and for this example, let's say with gardening, and if it could just stay within gardening, but the more I tend to find out more about other people, I'm like, okay. All right.
I love it. I love finding out more about people. I want to know what their jobs are, what their hustles are. I want to know how many kids they have, and like if they're happily married. I want to know all the deep.
Do you view Instagram and YouTube the same in your social media strategy here?
So I think I just suck at YouTube. Like it's hard to make that much content. To sit down and talk for 15, 20 minutes and make it interesting is hard. But like Instagram, a 60-second reel is doable. I could put that out there. And so I just haven't invested as much time or dedication into YouTube. But yeah, Instagram is where my community is. I know all the people there. I know my followers on Instagram, and I follow them back. And YouTube and TikTok as well. I've like just started throwing some stuff up on TikTok, and like I don't follow anybody on TikTok. I just put my videos out and see what happens. And YouTube so far has been the same. Like I don't know how to build a community. I don't have that community there yet. But part of my plan is to put a little bit more into YouTube videos, trying to get some sort of regular posting going on.
On TikTok, you're also the Hobby Homestead?
Yeah, but I think I lost that name. I think it's like the hobby.
Oh, somebody else had it?
Yeah, it took too long.
Yeah, that's the thing that is hard when you decide that you're trying to formalize a little bit more than just being a casual account, and you're trying to preserve that name and try to bring it within your tent and umbrella, and then you're like, oh, somebody else has this exact name on the other platform.
Yep. I'm trying to buy my web domain, thehobbyhomestead.com.
Yeah.
And I found that somebody already had it. And I was like, how is this possible? Like such a weird name. Why would somebody have that name? And it bothered me for like 6 months. I've been thinking about this.
Yeah.
It's going to cost me so much money to get a broker to try to get it. And then I realized that it was me, that I owned it, that I started the Hobby Homestead in 2018 in a WordPress blog. And I bought the domain, and then I was a student. And so I was like, I can't afford to keep paying for this domain. So I just let it lapse. And so right now I'm in the process of trying to prove to, I don't know, the internet gods that it's me and that I deserve to have it back
if they haven't. So nobody has it, and it was you who initially reserved it. You quit paying for it.
Yeah.
Doesn't that just doesn't it become open?
I don't know. It says that somebody has it, but it's not in use. And so I could get a broker to get it. But this is so outside my wheelhouse.
Put that on the to-do list for the wife when she gets home tonight. Be like, okay, I need you to figure out how to get the domain back. Let's get this deck going.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It is on the to-do list. There's so much.
Well, Amy, I appreciate you kind of hanging out and talking a little bit of the hustle that you have going on. I know that there's a lot of people just like myself that when we see others like you and you're posting things like you did yesterday to where you're like, you have these ups and downs and you left your job and you're trying to get a couple things going. And, oh, by the way, you've got 2 kids. And, oh, by the way, you've got a marriage that you're trying to, keep fresh and spicy and all that good stuff. But it's tough and it's hard. And I recognize the struggles when you're being open and honest like that. And I think a lot of times we don't see that. All we see is the person that has set up 3 different side hustles and it's super successful. And you're just like, oh, I can't relate to that. I can relate to Amy curled up in a fetal position in the garden sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah. Although I'm kind of toxically positive too. So that never lasts long for me. And I'll always try to find motivation somewhere and bounce back. And so, there's not too big of a dramatic story for me because I'll just make it work.
Well, that's good. People need people like you in their corner that are sometimes toxically positive just to kind of reel them off of the edge of the building or something to where they're like, this was a mistake. And I even think you mentioned that in your story too. You had said, you questioned, was this a mistake?
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's gotta be normal. Everybody who does this asks themselves that.
What's one bit of help or a tip? Let's say they've come across this podcast, they're listening to it on their way to their 9 to 5 and they're stuck in traffic and they're just like, I'm so done with this, but I don't have the motivation to work on my passion. Mm-hmm. What would you say to them? What's one tip that you could give them?
Make a business plan. Because I wouldn't want to advise someone just to quit their job to follow their dream if there was a pretty good chance it wasn't going to work out, and then you'd be screwed. And so make a business plan and make sure that there's a likelihood at least that you're going to be able to scrape by.
That does help. That does help. Amy, the Hobby Homestead, you can find her on Instagram. You can find her on YouTube. And if you're diligent enough, you can find her on TikTok when you figure out where the dot goes.
Yeah, totally.
She's kind of the Hobby Homestead on TikTok. Let's just see if they can find you. And then let her know. If you follow her on all 3 accounts, let her know that you went and followed her on all 3 accounts. Amy, thank you again. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brian. That was light.